The auditorium lights dimmed as my son, Liam, stepped to the podium for his valedictorian speech. His voice steady with the pride we'd nurtured together. But before he could finish, Mark, my husband of 25 years, stood abruptly, microphone in hand, declaring to the packed room of families and faculty, "I'm leaving Elena for Sarah. Our marriage is over." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Liam froze. I sat there, heart shattering in silence, forcing a nod as eyes turned to me, waiting for the breakdown. Liam's words echoed in the auditorium, a culmination of late nights spent helping him refine his code projects and essays, all while balancing the demands of our Seattle startup. But Mark's interruption sliced through it all, his voice amplified over the speakers, turning our family's milestone into his personal stage. He claimed it was time for honesty, that our life had become a facade, but the implication hung heavier. Sarah, his colleague from the tech firm, waited in the wings of what he'd built as our shared dream. I gripped the armrest, the wood biting into my palm, as applause died into stunned whispers. Liam trailed off mid-sentence, his eyes darting to me for guidance, but I managed only a tight smile, signaling him to continue. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, parents exchanging glances, faculty murmuring about the disruption. Mark sat back down beside me, his hand brushing mine as if to offer comfort, but the touch felt foreign, calculated. He leaned in, whispering that we'd discuss it later, that this freed us all. Yet his tone carried a smug finality that ignited the first spark of doubt. Why now, in front of everyone? The question burned as Liam wrapped up his speech, accepting his diploma with forced poise while the audience clapped politely, their attention fractured. Driving home through the rain-slicked streets, the wipers slashed rhythmically against the windshield, mirroring the choppy thoughts racing in my mind. Mark rode shotgun, silent at first, then launching into justifications about how the startup's pressure had exposed our incompatibilities. He mentioned Sarah's energy matching his vision better, how she'd been there during investor calls when I was buried in back-end code. I nodded along, focusing on the taillights ahead, but inside, confusion twisted into a sharper edge. Hadn't we built this company together from our garage, line by line? Liam sat in the back, headphones on, staring out the window, his earlier shock now a quiet withdrawal. At a red light, Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, a flicker of satisfaction crossing his features before he silenced it. That small action lodged in my memory, a glitch in the routine we'd maintained for years. By the time we pulled into the driveway of our modest craftsman house overlooking Puget Sound, the silence had thickened, pressing against my chest. Inside, Liam retreated to his room without a word, the door clicking shut like a final punctuation. Mark poured himself a drink from the kitchen cabinet, offering me one, but I declined, busying myself with clearing the counter. Anything to avoid his gaze. He paced slightly, recounting how he'd planned the announcement to avoid a private confrontation, believing it would force clarity. His words came in measured bursts, emphasizing freedom and new beginnings, but they landed like accusations, implying I'd been the anchor holding him back. I asked about the timing, why taint Liam's achievement, and he brushed it off as coincidental, insisting the speech provided the perfect audience for truth. Doubt deepened. His evasive shifts about finances during recent meetings replayed, sudden cutbacks on our joint account despite the latest funding round. Had Sarah influenced those decisions? The thought clawed at me, turning passive worry into active unease. That evening, as rain pattered against the windows, I reviewed our shared calendar on my laptop, noting Mark's unmarked late nights labeled vaguely as team syncs. Patterns emerged. Dinners he claimed were client meetings, weekends away for conferences, that aligned with Sarah's social media posts from the same venues. He joined me on the couch eventually, attempting normalcy by discussing Liam's college plans, but his foot tapped incessantly, betraying impatience. When I pressed about the startup's latest projections, he deflected, saying numbers were volatile, that Sarah had crunched them favorably. The mention stung, a subtle insertion that elevated her role. Sleep evaded me that night, lying beside him in the dark, his steady breathing a stark contrast to my racing pulse. Flashes of our history intruded. Early days coding prototypes side by side, celebrating the first big contract with takeout and dreams of scaling up. Now, those memories felt tainted, the trust we'd coded into our partnership glitching under scrutiny. Morning brought no relief. Liam avoided breakfast, grabbing coffee before heading to a study group, his goodbye curt. Mark left for the office early, kissing my forehead absently, promising to talk more that night. Alone, I dove into work emails, but concentration fractured, pulling me toward the financial dashboard for our startup. Discrepancies jumped out. Unauthorized transfers to an external account, small at first but accumulating, timed around his absences. My stomach knotted as I cross-referenced dates with his calendar, each one tied to Sarah's involvement. Calling it stress wouldn't suffice anymore. This was deliberate erosion. I hesitated over his login credentials, shared for transparency, but the temptation to verify gnawed relentlessly. Instead, I closed the laptop, heart pounding with a mix of fear and fury, the betrayal crystallizing from suspicion into certainty. The life we'd engineered together was unraveling, thread by thread, and I couldn't ignore the code breaking before my eyes. By afternoon, the office called, Mark's assistant scheduling an urgent team huddle, her tone clipped. I arrived to find the conference room buzzing, colleagues exchanging uneasy looks as Mark presented updates, glossing over budget shortfalls. Sarah sat across from him, contributing seamlessly, their synced gestures amplifying the rift. Questions arose about resource allocation, and his responses faltered, deferring to her data without acknowledgement of my foundational work. Frustration built, not just from exclusion, but from the evident favoritism undermining our original blueprint. After the meeting, I cornered him in the hallway, demanding clarity on the transfers. He assured me it was reallocating for growth, nothing personal, but his eyes avoided mine, the lie hanging palpable. Driving back, anger simmered beneath confusion, pushing me toward confrontation, yet a colder resolve formed. I needed proof, not pleas. The startup, our son, my future. Everything hinged on exposing the fracture before it collapsed entirely. Evenings blurred into a tense routine. Mark's absences lengthened, excuses layering thicker. Liam sensed the shift, withdrawing further. His questions about the announcement met with my evasive assurances that we'd sort it. Internally, pain throbbed. How had devotion curdled it into this deception? I pored over bank statements late into nights, tracing paths to Sarah's name on vendor invoices that didn't match. Each discovery amplified the betrayal, confusion yielding to a seething clarity. He'd been siphoning our joint efforts for months, building an escape on the foundation I'd helped lay. The weight pressed, but so did determination. No longer the supportive partner in the shadows, I plotted my next move, the shattered piece forging an unyielding edge. The auditorium's echo faded as Elena drove home through Seattle's evening drizzle, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, replaying Mark's announcement in loops that refused to pause. Liam sat beside her now, unusually quiet, his questions about the disruption met with her assurances that adults handled their issues privately. Mark followed in his own car, texting ahead about needing space to talk, but she silenced notifications, focusing on the road's hypnotic lines. By the time they arrived at the house, tension hung thick. Liam headed straight to unpack his diploma, avoiding the kitchen where Mark waited, arms crossed, ready to explain his bold move. Elena poured water for herself, the glass cool against her palm, buying seconds before his words filled the space. How the marriage had stagnated amid startup demands. How Sarah represented fresh collaboration without the weight of history. He emphasized liberation for all, including Liam, but the phrasing rang defensive, as if preempting her pushback. She nodded minimally, excusing herself to the home office under pretense of checking emails, her pulse quickening with unspoken accusations. Alone with the door shut, Elena powered on Mark's laptop, left charging on the desk from his morning rush, a careless oversight amid his growing haste. The screen lit up to his unsecured session, folders temptingly open from recent use. She hesitated, fingers hovering, then delved into the browser history first, tracing links to real estate sites for downtown condos, listings bookmarked with notes on quick leases, dates aligned with his client dinners, pulling her deeper into deleted items recovered through simple cache tools she'd mastered years ago in debugging code. Emails surfaced next, innocuous at first, team updates co-authored with Sarah, but attachments revealed wire transfer confirmations from the startup's main account, routed to a new entity under her name for consulting fees. Amounts started small, 5 figures monthly, escalating to cover rent on that very condo, utilities, even weekend getaways logged as business expenses. Elena's breath caught. These weren't errors but pattern diversions, siphoning funds meant for server upgrades and team hires. Scrolling further, chat logs painted the full betrayal. Mark detailing escape timelines to Sarah, positioning Liam's graduation as the clean break point to avoid messy negotiations. He described Elena as reliable but stifling, crediting Sarah's input for recent investor wins while downplaying her role in the core architecture. Messages turned intimate, plans for merging lives post-announcement, with Sarah urging Speed to secure the financial cushion he'd built from their joint pot. One thread outlined falsified invoices for her services, backdated to legitimize the outflow, complete with shared spreadsheets tracking balances to evade audits. Shock rooted Elena in place, not a burst of tears but a visceral hollowing, as if code she'd written line by line now executed against her. The laptop's fan whirred softly, underscoring the silence, while outside, Mark's voice called Liam for a father-son chat. Oblivious to the unraveling nearby, she cross-referenced the transfers against company ledgers on her own device, confirming discrepancies. Projected growth stalled not from market dips but these leaks, totaling over 6 figures in under a year. Vendor complaints from the last quarter replayed in her mind. Delayed payments to cloud providers, blamed on cash flow, now clearly redirected. Sarah's involvement sharpened the wound. As lead on front-end, she'd access shared drives, likely approving her own payouts under Mark's oversight. Elena's hands steadied as she screenshot evidence. The act mechanical yet empowering, transforming raw hurt into documented ammunition. No immediate confrontation tempted her. Instead, a vow solidified, to shield Liam and the startup from total collapse, exposing the fraud without descending to their level. Closing the laptop, she deleted her search traces, the weight shifting from confusion to cold calculation. Downstairs, Mark attempted normalcy, suggesting takeout to ease the night, but Liam declined, retreating again with a mumbled excuse about homework. Elena joined them briefly, her responses clipped, probing subtly about the condo searches she'd glimpsed. Mark deflected, claiming research for team expansions, but his evasion confirmed the lies, fueling her internal storm. Anger flickered beneath the ache, not at Sarah's youth or allure, but at the systematic dismantling of their foundation. Years of late-night prototypes, risk-shared failures, now weaponized for his gain. She excused herself early, feigning fatigue, but sleep dodged her, mind racing through legal angles. Breach of fiduciary duty in their co-founder agreement, potential SEC flags for investor funds. By dawn, resolve hardened. She'd consult the attorney discreetly, gather more proofs like access logs showing collaborative edits on the fraudulent docs. Morning light filtered through blinds as Elena reviewed bank alerts on her phone. Another unauthorized pull flagged overnight. Rent for the hidden place, auto-deducted. Mark stirred beside her, unaware, murmuring about a big meeting, but she rose first, drafting an anonymous ethics tip to the board via a burner email, detailing the transfers without naming sources yet. Liam knocked softly, asking if she was okay, his concern piercing the armor. She pulled him into a hug, promising stability, though inside, betrayal's sting demanded action. At the office later, Sarah's desk caught her eye, stacked with prototype sketches Elena recognized as her own designs, repurposed for pitches. Overhearing Mark praise Sarah's innovations in a call, jealousy twisted into righteous fury, theft extended beyond money to intellectual credit. Elena slipped into the server room during lunch, downloading backups of all financial trails, her coder's precision ensuring irrefutable chains. Confrontation brewed that afternoon when Mark requested her sign off on a budget reallocation, ironically to cover shortfalls. She approved it outwardly, buying time, but internally mapped the escalation. Frozen assets via court order, whistleblower protections for the company. Pain lingered, a dull throb from lost partnership, but clarity overrode it, pushing her toward empowerment. Liam texted about college apps, grounding her. Protecting his future meant dismantling the deceit methodically. As evening fell, Mark suggested date night to reconnect, but Elena declined, citing work, her refusal a quiet assertion of boundaries. Alone again, she compiled the dossier, each piece locking the puzzle, embezzlement intertwined with affair, a dual fracture demanding surgical response. The revelation didn't break her. It recalibrated, from passive co-founder to vigilant guardian, tension coiling tighter with every uncovered layer. By midnight, Elena lay awake, replaying messages where Mark mocked her trust as naivety, Sarah laughing along. Rage simmered, not explosive but channeled, into plans for asset traces via forensic accountants. The startup's survival hinged on this. Investors deserve truth, Liam a stable launchpad. She rose to email her lawyer, outlining basics, the send button a threshold crossed. No more denial. The hollow ache filled with purpose, propelling her forward against the mounting stakes. Elena slipped into the home office before dawn, the condo still wrapped in pre-dawn quiet. Her notepad open on the desk as she outlined the first steps with mechanical precision. The betrayal's raw edges demanded structure. She listed priorities starting with asset protection, drawing from her engineer's logic to break down the chaos into actionable phases. No outburst tempted her. Only calculated moves to safeguard Liam's future and the startup's viability against Mark's deceptions. She began by pulling up the co-founder agreement they'd signed years ago, scanning clauses on fiduciary duties that clearly prohibited the transfers she'd uncovered. Highlighting sections on financial transparency, she noted how Mark's actions breached them outright, providing grounds for immediate intervention. Tension knotted her shoulders as she cross-checked investor contracts, confirming that embezzlement could trigger clawbacks, but her focus sharpened, channeling fury into fuel for the plan. By mid-morning, after Mark left for another strategy session with Sarah, Elena scheduled a virtual consult with her divorce attorney, a specialist in tech sector disputes she'd researched overnight. The call connected swiftly. She shared screenshots of the transfers and messages without emotion, describing the patterns factually. The escalating sums, the falsified invoices, the timeline tying to their affair. The attorney confirmed viability for an emergency filing to freeze joint accounts and the startup's funds, citing Washington state laws on marital assets and business fraud. He advised gathering witness corroboration next, suggesting discreet outreach to colleagues who'd seen Mark's favoritism, like the lead developer who'd complained about Sarah's unearned approvals. Elena agreed, ending the call with a timeline. File by end of week to preempt any further diversions. Hanging up, resolve deepened. This wasn't vengeance but justice, restoring balance to the scales Mark had tipped. She moved to her laptop, compiling transaction logs from the past year, exporting CSV files that traced every dollar from startup inflows to the hidden account. Each entry amplified the ache. Funds earmarked for Liam's college contributions now wasted on their secret life. But she pushed through, annotating with timestamps from Mark's calendar to link absences to outflows. A quick search on forensic accounting tools led her to free audit software, which she ran to flag anomalies, generating reports that quantified the total at over $150,000. Printing them, she filed copies in a secure folder, then texted 2 trusted team members under pretense of project feedback, probing their observations on budget shifts. Responses trickled in. One confirmed overhearing Mark approve Sarah's bonuses, without board input. The other noted delayed vendor payments despite healthy inflows. These statements, she forwarded to the attorney, building a chain of evidence that transformed isolated suspicions into a prosecutable case. Afternoon brought a deeper dive into company bylaws. Elena accessed the shared drive remotely, downloading governance docs that empowered co-founders to call ethics reviews. She drafted an anonymous report to the board, detailing the fraud without personal accusations, attaching redacted logs to highlight risks to investors. Submitting it via a VPN-masked email ensured traceability back to her only if needed, but the act felt like reclaiming agency, tension easing slightly as the send confirmed. Mark's incoming text about late dinner plans interrupted. She replied neutrally, masking the internal storm where anger at his duplicity clashed with lingering grief over their shared history. No direct reply tempted her. Instead, she pivoted to personal finances, transferring her separate savings to a new account, insulating it from joint claims. Consulting the attorney's follow-up email, she learned of prenup-like protections in their marriage contract, clauses on infidelity impacting asset splits, which could secure the condo and her equity stake. As evening approached, Liam returned from classes, his questions about the family tension met with her measured updates. Things were complicated, but she'd handle it to keep his focus on applications. Hugging him briefly, she felt the stakes personalize. The betrayal threatened not just her security but his stability, fueling a colder determination. Back at the desk, she researched whistleblower safeguards under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, noting protections against retaliation for reporting securities fraud in startups with venture backing. This aligned with her next step, looping in the lead investor discreetly, framing it as a governance concern to prompt an audit. Drafting that email took precision, emphasizing data over drama, projecting timelines for recovery if addressed swiftly. Each keystroke solidified her shift from stunned victim to strategic architect, pain honing into purpose as she envisioned the fallout. Mark facing board scrutiny, Sarah's role exposed, their plot dismantled without her raising a voice. Night deep in the planning. Elena reviewed state statutes on embezzlement, penalties including fines up to triple the amount and potential felony charges for sums over $5,000, which bolstered her case for asset freezes. She mapped contingencies. If Mark contested the filing, counter with the messages proving intent. For the startup, propose a vote to remove him as CEO under misconduct clauses. Tension coiled tighter with every detail, but so did clarity. Anger at the financial sabotage, the emotional theft, propelled her forward without recklessness. A call to the attorney clarified divorce proceedings. Temporary orders could bar Mark from company access pending hearings, preserving her control. Noting court dates, she scheduled the filing for Friday, aligning with the board's weekly review to maximize impact. Liam's light under his door reminded her of the why. Protecting him meant enduring the internal churn, transforming hurt into unassailable resolve. By midnight, the notepad filled with phases, legal filings, evidence handover, investor alerts, each checked off mentally as feasible. She backed up everything to an encrypted drive, then lay down, mind racing through simulations. Mark's denial, Sarah's deflection, the board's reaction. No fantasies of confrontation. Only precise outcomes where truth enforced consequences. The plan's architecture felt solid, like debugging a critical flaw. The betrayal's hollow receding against building momentum. Morning would bring execution, but for now, quiet strategy reigned, her purpose unyielding amid the gathering storm. The boardroom door swung open Friday morning. Elena entering with her encrypted drive tucked under her arm. The emergency filing already processed overnight to secure the assets. Mark arrived minutes later, striding in with Sarah at his side, both projecting confidence as they took seats at the conference table, unaware of the agenda shift. The lead investor, alerted by her discreet email, called the meeting to order abruptly, directing Elena to present her findings as co-founder with oversight rights. She connected her drive to the projector, voice level as she displayed the transaction logs first, tracing the $150,000 in diversions from startup funds to the hidden account. Board members leaned forward, murmurs rising as she highlighted the falsified invoices bearing Sarah's approvals, linking each to Mark's calendar entries for their private meetings. No accusations flew from her lips, only facts laid bare, projecting the near-bankruptcy trajectory if unchecked, with charts showing investor capital at risk. Mark shifted in his chair, interrupting to claim the transfers as legitimate reallocations for growth initiatives, but the investor silenced him, demanding verification. Elena advanced to the chat logs, redacted for sensitivity, revealing the affair's role in the scheme. Messages plotting the graduation announcement as cover for the financial exit. Sarah's involvement surfaced starkly. Her signatures on the fraudulent docs, her suggestions for backdating to evade scrutiny. Tension thickened as the board chair reviewed the co-founder agreement, confirming breaches of fiduciary duty that empowered immediate action. Mark attempted to counter, insisting on a private review, but the evidence mounted too swiftly. Colleagues' statements, forwarded earlier, corroborated the favoritism and budget manipulations. Elena remained seated, observing as doubt rippled across faces, her internal storm of pain and resolve steadying into quiet vindication. The vote came without delay. Sarah's recent promotion revoked on grounds of conflict and complicity, her access to company systems suspended pending investigation. She stood abruptly, gathering her notes, voice tight as she defended her actions as directed, but the board dismissed her, escorting her out to consult legal counsel separately. Mark's turn followed. Projections Elena had prepared illustrated the clawback potential under venture terms, with penalties tripling the embezzled sum per state fraud statutes. Investors voiced their pullout intentions, citing eroded trust, as the first funding wire reversed automatically post-filing. He pushed back, demanding Elena's recusal for bias, but the chair overruled, pointing to her documented contributions versus his deceptions. Audits launched on the spot, external forensics hired to trace every cent, trapping Mark in a web of his own making. Elena contributed minimally, handing over server backups that sealed the patterns, her presence a silent force redirecting the narrative from his control. Fallout accelerated that afternoon. News of the board's emergency session leaked through investor channels, hitting tech blogs by lunch with headlines on executive misconduct at the rising startup. Mark's phone buzzed incessantly with calls from partners withdrawing support, his attempts to spin the story via emails falling flat against the mounting evidence. Sarah distanced herself publicly, posting a vague statement on LinkedIn about seeking new opportunities, privately texting Mark accusations of sole responsibility to shield her career. Elena monitored from her workstation, the divorce attorney's update confirming asset freezes held, joint accounts locked barring essentials. No gloating crossed her mind, only a measured satisfaction as consequences unfolded, the pain of betrayal easing against the structure she'd imposed. Liam texted concern over the office rumors, but she reassured him briefly, focusing on the board's next directive. Mark's ouster as CEO effective immediately, with Elena stepping in as interim lead to stabilize operations. By evening, the full board reconvened virtually, Elena presenting recovery plans, refunding diverted portions from frozen reserves, restructuring budgets to prioritize core development. Mark joined remotely, voice strained as he negotiated his exit, but terms hardened. Forfeiture of equity stakes tied to the fraud, non-compete clauses barring him from Seattle's tech scene for years. Investors reinstated partial commitments after her outline, praising the swift containment, though scrutiny lingered on all leadership. Sarah's role dissolved completely. HR flagged her for potential charges, her references tainted by the scandal. Mark's smug facade from the announcement crumbled into desperate pleas for leniency, but Elena's prepared clauses in the agreement ensured his isolation. No severance, just accountability. She signed off on the resolutions, the act closing a chapter, tension uncoiling as control returned to ethical hands. Week's end brought deeper repercussions. Forensic reports detailed the embezzlement's scope, prompting SEC notifications for investor fraud implications, with fines looming up to 3 times the amount under federal guidelines. Mark faced personal summons from the attorney, the divorce proceedings accelerating with infidelity clauses activating asset divisions in Elena's favor. The condo secured, her shares intact. He called once, voice breaking through voicemails seeking reconciliation, but she deleted them unread, channeling energy into team meetings where morale rebounded under her steady guidance. Sarah's apartment lease, funded by the siphoned money, faced eviction notices as payments halted, her job hunt complicated by blacklisting whispers in the industry. Elena reviewed the startup's trajectory, pivoting hires to loyal developers, the dream salvaged minus the corruption. Internal anger at the sabotage faded against the cathartic precision of exposure, each fallout step affirming her strategy's reach. Liam joined her for dinner that night, probing the chaos gently. She shared enough to affirm stability, his relief mirroring her own quiet empowerment. Board emails praised her handling, positioning her for permanent CEO role. A role once shared, now hers alone. Mark's reputation shattered beyond repair, former allies ghosting, his network contracting as audits revealed more discrepancies. Sarah cut ties fully, blocking his contacts amid her own legal consultations, their envisioned life evaporating under self-inflicted weight. Elena archived the evidence files, the weight lifting as justice manifested not in chaos but order, the betrayal's sting dulled by reclaimed agency. No direct triumph sought, only the satisfaction of facts enforcing natural consequences, propelling her forward unburdened. 3 months after the board's decisive actions, the divorce finalized in a swift hearing, Elena retaining full equity in the startup and the waterfront condo under the infidelity clauses, her shares now anchoring the company's rebound. She stood on Pier 62's overlook, rain misting the air as Liam leaned on the railing beside her, outlining his acceptance to MIT's computer science program with excitement tempered by the family's upheavals. Mark's sporadic calls had ceased weeks ago, his voicemails deleted without listening, filled with pleas that rang empty after the greed that cost him everything. The CEO title, the network of contacts, even Sarah's fleeting support. Elena nodded along to Liam's plans, suggesting internship opportunities at the revitalized firm, her voice steady as the waves lapped below. No viter ni surfist. Instead, a deep calm settled, the raw pain of discovery and exposure forged into enduring strength that freed her from the shadows of their shared past. Back at the office that week, Elena led her first full strategy session as permanent CEO, pitching expansions to a core team of loyal developers, their buy-in swift after the fraud's cleanup. Investors returned with renewed commitments, impressed by her pivot to ethical scaling, hiring underrepresented coders, open-sourcing non-core tools to build trust. She mentored a young engineer one-on-one after hours, debugging a legacy module from the startup's early days. Her guidance precise and encouraging, drawing from lessons hard-won through betrayal. Liam joined occasionally, shadowing meetings to prep for college, his questions sharpening her own reflections on resilience. Mark's absence loomed only in legal updates. Audits complete with restitution orders forcing him to repay the siphoned funds from personal assets. His attempts to launch a solo venture stalled by non-competes and tarnished reputation. Sarah had vanished from Seattle's tech circles, relocating quietly after her role in the scandal barred her from key networks. Her career reset to entry-level gigs far from the glamour they'd chased. Evenings brought routine without the old tension. Elena coded independently on side projects, algorithms for financial transparency tools inspired by the ordeal, submitting one to a conference that accepted it for presentation. Liam helped test prototypes over dinner, their conversations drifting to future collaborations, the bond tightened by shared navigation of the crisis. A letter arrived from Mark's attorney, proposing asset negotiations, but she forwarded it untouched to her lawyer, prioritizing closure over contention. Calm deepened during solo walks along the waterfront. The pier's public space is now a ritual for processing, watching ferries depart, mirroring her own forward momentum. No longing for reconciliation stirred. The greed that unraveled him stood as self-inflicted, leaving her unencumbered to expand the startup's reach into AI ethics consulting. 6 months post-fallout, Elena keynote at a local tech summit, outlining fraud prevention frameworks without naming names, the audience's nods affirming her expertise born from necessity. Liam launched his freshman year remotely at first, interning part-time at the firm during breaks, his pride in her leadership evident in quick calls home. Mark's world contracted further. Whispers of lawsuits from former partners, his isolation complete as friends distanced amid the exposure. Sarah surfaced in a distant job posting. Unaffiliated and starting over, her loyalty to him evaporated under pressure. Elena reviewed quarterly reports showing profit surges, allocating bonuses to the team that stayed true, her decisions rooted in the clarity gained from crisis. The condo felt like hers alone now, a base for new ventures, perhaps a non-profit for women in tech facing similar breaches. One rainy afternoon on the pier again, Liam shared internship offers from competitors, weighing options with her input, the discussion flowing easily without the old undercurrents. She encouraged his choices, drawing parallels to her own reinvention, the pains echo faint against present purpose. Mark's final legal overture, a mediated settlement, dissolved in court, judges upholding the original terms, his appeals exhausted. Calm enveloped her fully, not as absence of feeling but as integrated power, the betrayal's lessons woven into daily actions. Vetting hires rigorously, auditing finances monthly, mentoring without reservation. Liam hugged her goodbye before heading to campus, promising visits, his independence a testament to the stability she'd secured. In quiet moments coding late, Elena reflected on the arc, from shattered announcement to this poised command, the greed that broke their unit now a catalyst for her ascent. No whispers to the waves needed. Action spoke the truth of rebuilding, hope embedded in every line of code and strategic choice. The startup thrived under her vision, Liam's path clear, Mark's regrets his alone to bear. Freedom arrived not in triumph, but in unforced progress.